Welcome to day 6, guys. Today should be a fairly interesting one. By myself today. And I've been thinking and jotting down some scenarios that happen when you're out there hunting. And, different situations you can find yourself in where you're like, oh crap, I've never done this before. So we try to do that, try to think of those things, which we have a pretty good long list. But today one I wanted to try is we have, this is uphill here. It's kind of hard to see that on video, but you'll probably see it once we stick some arrows in the foam, assuming we hit it. But this is the scenario where you're walking to your tree stand, let's say this is probably going to mostly apply to northeast whitetail hunters, where we hunt farm country, so we have mix of small woods and hedgerows and fields and stuff of that scenario. I don't know much about, western hunting, spot and stalk type stuff, but this is a situation we could run into. Walk into your stand, it's evening, still early season, you're primarily hunting food sources, things like that. Deer aren't all amped up, but you're walking, and all of a sudden you see, a deer that you might be after. And, you're glassing across the field and you already see this sucker. He's going to where you're going, and you're too late. You're never going to get there and get in your tree stand and get settled before he, pops out. But you can kind of put your butt in gear and get close and maybe make some kind of little makeshift, hide on the ground and hope he crosses your path, and this is assuming the lay of the land and everything works like that, and you have favorable wind and a lot of things that go into that. But what that can do is put you in an awkward shooting position. You don't have a chair with you, to shoot from. You don't have any of your groundwork done. You don't have any type of blind. You just get there, you kind of get behind a tree, you get in a hedgerow, you get set up where you think he's going to pop out, and you're going to have the wind advantage on him. He's probably not going to see you, and you have a potential shot, chance for a draw. And I've been in that situation multiple times, both with a rifle and with a bow. And I've never taken a deer doing that, but I've been there. I've had the opportunity to, and just haven't. So it's possible, I guess we'll say. So what we have going on here is I'm going to be sitting over here, just kind of on the ground, kneeling down. So kneeling position, trying to shoot, difficult as it is. The ground's very uneven, and we're going to be shooting uphill at a deer that's just outside the clearing. So all of its vitals are open. It would be something ideal. Oftentimes when deer enter fields and open areas like that, they'll come out, or they'll pause just in the cover, and they'll stand there for a while, and it's it's a good opportunity to take one. So that's going to be it. We're going to be holding low on it, going for that classic heart shot, because the shots are going to be angled up. It's probably not going to be great. We're going to be about 30, 32 yards, something, wherever we set up here. We'll check it out, and then we're going to make our shots. I'm not a great shot shooting out of position, shooting in a chair and shooting down on my knees. It really takes a lot out of you. So we're going to do our best, and it's just for practice anyways.
Last 3 I had more pin movement than all the shots, and ended up being my best group anyways, but get lucky once in a while. Alright, so that's a dead deer. I don't know if this reflects the angle. Not really, but we can see exit wound wise, you know, where that would be, but yeah, alright.
Very pleased with how I shot, and very surprised, if I'm being honest. Very out of position for me, uphill, on my knees, lots of pin float, just trying to trust that float and play the game of odds, and it worked out. So you got to trust that float. That's a very difficult concept to get a hold of. So thanks for watching. If you guys want to stick around for just a second, and by that I mean several minutes, we can talk about a couple other observations I've made and some things that I've learned that I'd like to share with you. First of all, sitting in that position, you're low to the ground, there's vegetation still up, there's you know, goldenrod, poison ivy, other things kicking around here. And I say that to say you have to watch that. Shooting compound bow, your bottom cam, if some of this stuff, you know, you're focused on that deer, you're watching, you didn't really have time to really clear out an area, you sat down in a big hurry, it would be a big shame if a piece of goldenrod or a piece of any heavier, you know, stemmed material were to come over and get between your cam and your string and knock your string off your bow, or knock the cables off. Any of that's a complete disaster with a compound bow, because it's probably going to happen during a draw cycle. Limbs are going to fly out, strings coming off, you're punching yourself in the face, and your deer's running the other direction. Even if he stood there, it doesn't matter, because your bow's blown apart at that point. Good chance you could, you know, bend your cam, you know, tear the serving or ruin the serving on your string or cables, or crack a limb, or, you know, there's things that can happen. So just be mindful of that. They're not very robust. There's a lot of potential energy stored up in these things. So just be mindful of that. And the second thing I think about when I'm sitting there is, would I take this shot in real life? And what makes me the steadiest when you're sitting on your knees? Is it with your, you know, toes in the ground, knees fully bent, your butt's on top of your heels? Is it sitting on your knees but then, you know, sitting up fully erect before you, you know, well, you know, before you draw? And does that make you steadier? Or somewheres in between, you know, legs kind of splayed out, different stuff like that. So play with that. And if the answer that is none of those are steady, then just don't do it. You know, just don't take that shot. That's just not a position that you can shoot in. Try to get somewheres where you're standing by a tree, something like that, if you're in a situation like this. And that's the other thing. Let's say you are steady, you're on your knees, man, that's the best you've ever shot in your life. I mean, you were just rock solid. How long can you sit there though? How long can you be in that weird, awkward position before everything from the waist down is numb? The answer to that for me is about a minute. And all of a sudden, my little tootsies are getting numb. Oh, now my knees start to hurt. Oh, you got a rock poking you here. Now you're all wiggling around. Depending on your situation, who knows? That buck or that doe might not show up for a minute, half hour, 45 minutes, hour. Shoot, he might be over there feeding in the corner of the field, but now you're stuck. And, you know, you're just watching. You just barely make them out through the hedgerow or something. And you're just waiting. And, you know, the sun's going down. And, you know, so there's situations like that. So think about that. What am I going to do if I got to sit there for 20 minutes? I can't feel anything. Now you can't draw your bow or whatever. And that's the other thing to think about too, is the mechanics of it. You wouldn't think getting on the ground really changes the mechanics of your back muscles, your shoulders, anything like that. But it does, particularly shooting uphill on an angle like this. For me, anytime I'm shooting on an uphill, whether it's subtle or extreme, my draw length always feels super long, my anchor point's weird, and I just run out of muscle to pull through. Not just strength, but just physical mobility. And I have a tendency to just slap the trigger and command shoot it and let it fly. So that's something to think about. The other thing I would say to think about, not just to try to pull it all out here, but some people don't think is, yeah, I shot pretty good. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, like those were good shots for me. You know, 30 yards, or where we're at, 31 yards. I felt I shot pretty good for sitting on my knees in a position where I'm really awkward and my pin's floating all around. Add the element of adrenaline to that, and then now what? You know, where are you at with that? And that's what I think about And if you haven't hunted, you know, some of the people that watch our channel don't hunt. That's something that happens. I mean, people get pumped when they say, oh my gosh, this is, you know, this is a monster buck. I'm going to get these big antlers on my wall, or whatever it is that gets you pumped up. For me, it's just the knowing that you're going to end an animal's life. And I'm not trying to get, you know, all deep and philosophical, but at the end of the day, you know, you're killing that animal. And that's what you're doing. Yeah, you're out here hunting, but if everything works out, that animal's going to die. And that's just the cold hard truth. And that's what gets me kind of, you know, kind of pumped up, you know. So you're trying to control that emotion, you're trying to control, you know, that adrenaline, if you will, that's going to happen. I mean, your heart's racing. You want to do it good. You don't want to do that deer wrong, or that animal, whatever it is, you know, turkey or coyote or bear. I feel as hunters, as ethical hunters, we owe it to that animal to have a quick, clean kill, just a quick death. An arrow through that deer's heart or through that lungs, that deer won't live for 30 seconds and it's over. More often than not, if you have a well-placed shot, that deer will die within your sight. You'll see it, it'll run, fall in a pile, and it's game over. By the time you're back up on your feet, it's a done deal. So there's that element of it, you know. We don't want to do it dirty, because it happens, and I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I've seen it, I've done it. You make a bad shot. Whether it's, you know, because of adrenaline or because of whatever, you know, something happens. You don't get a good shot on that. It's not a great feeling. I know people that have quit hunting because of it, because they just can't live with that. And it's a tough thing to do, but it's inevitable. You hunt long enough, it's going to happen. You're going to have bad shots. You're going to spine shoot them. You're going to watch that whole thing play out. You're going to shoot them through the guts. You're going to shoot them in spots where you don't get to recover that animal. And in your heart and in your mind, you know that animal's dead, and you know it suffered for a really long time. And that's something that we try to avoid. And that's the dirty stuff people don't like to talk about. But that's something that's in my mind. And that's what gives me the drive and the focus to try to be and do the best I can, even though it always doesn't work out. It doesn't always work out that way. So I don't mean to go way off in the weeds there, but as a hunter, I think we all owe it to the animal to hunt with the proper equipment, hunt within our abilities, and try to make the best shot we can. And that's why I just practice. It does not make me exempt from mistakes, though. So, all right, that's it. We're over. We'll talk more on the next one. We'll see you guys on day whatever it is, day 7. Did I already say it's day 7? Today's day 6. We'll see you on the next day, all right, folks? Thanks for watching.